What up, Reject Nation? We are here today to watch from our friend Paul Heavy Spoilers. Classic. The Last of Us Episode 8, Easter eggs and breakdown, and you know there's some goodies. I'm looking forward to the thoughts that he has on this one. Joined, of course, by Jew number one at the channel. There's Roxy and Michael. Hey, you're number one.
Manishma.
What? Don't speak the devil's tongue in my household. Acor 711.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. Thank you for that introduction. I might be a little bit sad on this episode. I still haven't gotten over Callus from this last episode, but we'll see how I do. We'll see. That's the horse from the episode.
I know. There's always good reaction energy right here. Anyway, guys, leave a like. That would be very much appreciated. I love when you leave a like. Hey, guess what, guys?
Oh, wrong shirt.
I'm wrong. This
shirt.
is a random shirt I bought off Amazon.
I was gonna say, you should.
The
buy
other
that
one's
shirt
in the
too.
washer right now. The one you should get from shopzeroedition.com. But you know what keeps me afloat? G-Fuel, as I call them. God Fuel. That's what the G stands for in G Fuel. I'm assuming. You use special promo code Reject Nation. Link in the description box. Get yourself some G Fuel today. Over there. What do you see over there, Andrew?
That's a lot of God fuel.
That's a lot of God Fuel that's been drank for a lot of late night editing sessions, and boy, does it keep this channel afloat. Let's get to it.
Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul, and this video we're breaking down episode 8 of The Last of Us. This is the one I've been waiting for, and David in the game's one of the most memorable characters that you come across when playing.
David?
Voiced by Nolan North, he started off as an
David.
apparent ally, but as you began to learn more about him, you start to see his more sinister side. Though bloaters, clickers, and the infected were terrifying, I think one of the scariest things for me was playing as Ellie and moving about the restaurant as he walked
so
around
terrifying.
wielding a machete.
That level in the game.
It's terrifying.
So hard for me to figure out how to beat it. I'm like, I don't get it. I can kill bloaters and all these other people, but this one dude is taking me forever to beat.
Well, yeah, because if you step on the glass or you have to listen to him, and then sometimes the listen mode isn't very accurate.
Yes.
It's just it's a terrifying level, but I like it because it makes you not feel invincible, which most of the game, depending on what difficulty level you are playing on, most of the game you can feel like an invincible character. So I actually liked in that moment it's bogged down to no, you're not invincible, like you can die.
Yeah.
And I died several times on that part.
I play on very easy with cheat codes, by the way. It's still hard.
Normally, boss characters in games are gigantic monsters or highly skilled characters, but there was just something so unnerving about a creepy 50-year-old cannibal walking around looking for you. Now, as is with all Last of Us episodes, the fact that we aren't playing the game means that they can show things from the perspective of others. In the PlayStation counterpart, you are locked to the POV of Joel and Ellie, whereas here we can see more of David's backstory. That's how we begin as well, and we open by looking over his town, which is called Silver Lake in both the show and game. We discover David has taken it upon himself to become a holy man, and over the top of this, we hear him narrating Revelation 21.
Yay.
His opening line discusses the new heaven and new earth, and this very much reflects the new world that they've found themselves in the midst of. The verses in this chapter talk about how there'll be no need for a physical temple in this new world, because God's presence will be everywhere.
You're Jewish. That's from the Bible.
I was actually thinking in my head, I'm going to get a joke right here.
It's not a joke. That is from the Bible.
I'm talking about my
The
religion.
real God.
Okay, I'll have to read it sometime.
We then jump to see him hitched up in Todd's steakhouse to watch him delivering a sermon. Todd's restaurant was what it was called in the game, and it's been transformed into a makeshift church. We see how people have tried to find reason in what's happened to the world, and you can totally understand why some would turn to religion. I didn't want to spoil this episode all the way back in the first entry, but it's even possible that Mrs. Adler could have foreshadowed people going like this.
Well, that's true every day, isn't it? People out there need to get right with Jesus.
Now, religion beyond things spiritually
yes.
also acts as a way to explain things. For example, thousands of years ago, people didn't understand how the world was formed, but religions gave these answers whilst also outlining the best ways to live. Thus, people flocked towards them because science hadn't given alternatives. I'm trying to explain this as best as possible as I can without offending people. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that in this once more stripped back world, you can see why people would end up becoming religious. A lot of people don't have the scientific tools to answer things, and thus preachers could provide the answers and comfort to those that feel lost.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense to me that people would become spiritual in a sense like this because of the fact that when you're feeling so hopeless, sometimes you will look to something to find that sense of hope. And I'm not saying that if you are religious, all jokes aside, with your Judaism. I would understand someone wanting to, I could see both sides of the coin here. Someone going, there's clearly no God. Look at the world we live in. Or, no, there has to be a God because there has to be something good after all this has passed, right?
Yeah, but I also like the way David explained in the episode. I mean, it was done methodically and very sinister, the way he talked about how he didn't believe in God. It wasn't until, the outbreak and the cordyceps brain infection started that now he started believing. And it was just a very more sinister take on it. And I actually thought it was really executed really well. So I liked his explanation. It was kind of messed up the way he explained it, but I thought it worked well for the character.
Now, Revelations is about the end of the world, and thus it's easy to see why so many people would turn to this and David after the world had ended. It hasn't been all sunshine and rainbows though, and due to long hard winters, David has had to resort to cannibalism in order to keep people alive. We see a sign hanging up saying, "When we are in need, he shall provide," and this is playing on Philippians 4:19, which states, "God will provide for people."
I knew it! Said it in the reaction. I think that was a Philippians quote because there's some quotes I knew because I always thought it said Philippines when I was growing up. And for some reason that stood out to me. It's not exactly the same thing, but I was like, I think it's a Philippines quote. Pinoy Pride, even though it's not Pinoy, but Pinoy Pride.
This sign is also pulled over to the game, and when Ellie fights David in the restaurant, we can actually see the sign hanging up at the back of the room. Now, he's had to cross a line in order to provide, but David's hidden this from the people, whereas in the game, I always kind of got the impression that the townsfolk were aware.
Yeah.
Now, you might be wondering why they don't just move somewhere warm. Well, the fact is that people here feel safe, and they very much control their society. They're not oppressed by Fedra, and the infected also tended to stick to warmer areas. Though you did encounter some in the snow when you first met David, the second game showed that the exposure to the elements left them completely frozen. You also discovered that every time they bunkered down that the raiders eventually showed up, and thus they had to find somewhere that wasn't too appealing to others. So Salt Lake is probably the best place to be, though the cruel winters have meant that food becomes scarce. Now, interesting little tidbit for you, mate. Did you know that Vikings called it Iceland because it would put invaders off from going there? They called Greenland that because it was covered in ice, and thus when invaders arrived there, they'd be like, "F***' sake." Anyway, he goes to comfort a young girl there by saying that after pain, God will make it so there's no more sorrow. We learn this girl has just lost her father and that they want to bury him, but the ground is too cold. David calls himself her father, and it's very much a perverted version of the dad and daughter relationship that Joel has with Ellie. Whereas Joel will do anything to protect Ellie, David smacks her in front of people, and they're very much surrogate fathers at opposite ends of the scale. Anyway,
I'm getting the word nonce.
Yes, David is one of them, and I think that's what made the character in the game so creepy. I think this is obviously commenting on controversies surrounding the church, and going to be difficult not to offend people, but it's definitely an important thing to address. The entire holy man thing with David is something that wasn't present in the game, and I think it adds a whole new dimension to him when he's this creepy religious figure that eats people and preys on children. At this point, we get a quick cut of his right-hand man, James, and in case you don't recognize him, that's Troy Baker.
Who?
He actually played Joel in the game, and Baker gave this seminal performance that I think actually helped out with a lot of the success of The Last of Us. He's a very beloved voice actor, he's played lots of different iconic characters, and I have to say that I think he completely knocked it out of the park.
But the funny thing is, seeing Troy Baker here, it made me go, he could have played, I love what Pedro Pascal's doing, but he could have played the live action version of Joel. He looks enough like, if they want to do a little bit more of an accurate depiction.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be extremely accurate if it was Troy Baker, but he looks enough like the game counterpart and what they did with the model of Joel to be him.
I agree with you. And before Pedro Pascal was cast, and obviously I never thought they would actually cast Troy Baker, I always had in my head, I thought Josh Brolin could do an interesting job as Joel. But I mean, because I'd only been exposed to listening to Troy Baker in video games, from Batman Arkham Origins as the Joker to obviously The Last of Us Parts 1 and 2 and many others. He's got extreme range when it comes to acting, but seeing him actually in live action, what he was able to do in this episode as James, I'm like, holy crap, he's actually a good live action actor too. I definitely could have seen him as Joel, but having said that, I freaking love Pedro Pascal. He's so damn good. Me too. He's so damn good.
So far on the show, we've had Marlene's voice actor playing her in the series, Tommy's popped up as Perry, and now Baker is playing
Ashley
James.
Johnson next.
All that's left is Ellie's Ashley Johnson, so I can imagine that she'll be popping up next for the finale. There are rumors about who she could be playing,
she's
but
playing the mom.
we'll not spoil that yet.
Oh,
Should
I
change
guess I
the name
just
to
did.
not much of a spoiler.
Is that confirmed?
Mate,
It's
like the
that's
video.
usually
Anyway,
fine.
Baker actually looks a lot like Joel does in the game, and as much as I love Pedro, I wouldn't have minded him playing him in live action too.
Hey.
Look, I'm not trying to offend people again, and outside we hear how dire of a situation they're in when it comes to rations. In the game, we never saw this side of things, and after Joel fell off his horse at the university, you then cut to Ellie hunting. And whilst you were doing this, you noticed a buck that you then shot an arrow in. This didn't kill it, and thus you tracked it through the environment trying to take it out for food. It fled to an abandoned factory, which is when you found it dead, and at this point, James and David stepped forward. Now here we see the other side of it, with James and David talking about how some of their spotters saw a deer the other day. You see how their paths now cross from both sides, and also explore the doubt within James. He's clearly wrestling with the fact that they're crossing the line in order to keep going, and adds a lot of complexity to the character that wasn't originally there.
Absolutely.
He was pretty much just an NPC with a couple of lines, but here Baker fleshes him out so we get much more of his thoughts.
I thought what they did with James vastly improved upon a character that just felt like a nothing character in the actual video game. And it adds more to the real world qualities of having a cult-like leader here, because you got to have at least someone who is in this realm of feeling doubtful of the path that they're on, and it helps just humanize and flesh out the entire experience of this cult that has essentially formed here. So I thought like what they did with Troy Baker never distracted from the main storyline, and it didn't feel like it needed to become more fleshed out or more of a focus. It was just enough to enhance the experience.
In the video game, again, there was that one moment where he asked James to go get, the penicillin and the syringe for Ellie, and you could see the doubt, like, well, I don't know, like, I'm not gonna go get it. So they touched a little bit upon it, but it was expanded upon so much more in this episode. He was a lot more of a three-dimensional character here, and I actually liked that position that they put him in, because again, if you hadn't played the game, you're just the general going audience, and you didn't know what was going to happen later on in the episode, which obviously if you played the game, you know. But I like that it kind of created a rift between them, and like, oh my god, I kept thinking in my head, okay, I know what happens, but it really feels like David at any second could shoot him, or he could shoot David if I didn't know what was already going to happen. I thought they did a great job of just adding that layer to it between the two characters.
This cannibalism in the snow could be a reference to the Donner Party, who were a group of American pioneers that migrated to California from the Midwest. They got stuck in a snowy mountain range for a while and had to resort to cannibalism like what we see here. James is starting to doubt whether this is God's way, and it's possible he knows about the other stuff too. In the game, when Joel ambushes the town, you overhear some saying that David's leadership should be put to a vote again, so this sentiment was clearly felt amongst some of the other inhabitants. In the game,
I don't remember that line.
I don't either.
Kids here, but you did hear a woman saying that they were moving the children to a shelter. Now in the game,
There's
James
multiple
went off
children,
and
okay.
David and Ellie waited for him, which is when they were both swarmed by infected. You had to make your way through
That's
the
my favorite
abandoned
scene in the
factory
show.
as they closed in, and you made your final stand against some runners, clickers, and a bloater. In the game, you had no idea what was up with David at this point, and it allowed you to build some camaraderie with him. So far in the game, though you'd fought lots of hunters, the people that you'd met in cutscenes had ended up becoming your allies. This was the case with Marlene, Henry and Sam, and of course Joel's brother Tommy. It sort of lured you into this false sense of security with him, and when listening to the Kind of Funny podcast a couple of weeks ago, they did bring up a point that's stuck with me since then. They said that Kathleen might have even heard the David reveal a bit because we'd already experienced an evil leader figure. Though I don't know if that's fully the case, I do think having two characters like this in the show hurt the fact that David was someone you came across who was worse than the infected. You don't really trust him from the start, whereas in the game you kind of did.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel it missed that gut punch a bit, but
Absolutely.
let me know below if it caught you off guard.
I'm weirdly not that bothered by it. It's weird how they like kind of changed. They added this Kathleen character, and then they changed parts of the thing with David and the person who died in their camp that feel like they're in support and / setup for what's to come in The Last of Us Part 2. And so, I mean, I thought David was suspicious in the game right away. Then that fight scene is more than just a fight scene. It builds a trust. It makes that speech later on make more sense for when David is trying to court her to be his queen.
First of all, for people saying, hey, stop comparing it to the game, it's called The Last of Us.
Just to say something really quick about that, it's much more challenging for some people. Sometimes it happens to me with the show to not compare it to the game because of the fact that it's not like doing a book, where a book is just a narrated text, whereas here there's so many visual medium parallels that are adapting it that you're more likely to go, wow. And in the game, they look like human beings too, so you're more likely to compare it.
There's so much storytelling that goes on in this action sequence. Like, again, you get that false sense of, oh, David might actually be a friend. Like, he had that gun again, this is is the game I'm talking about. But he had that gun the entire time, and he gave Ellie his rifle. He could have shot her at any time that he wanted to, but he didn't. It just adds so much more layers to it. That was actually one of the very rare times in this show where something was cut out that personally bothered me. Sorry to you people that in the don't compare camp.
Now back with Ellie, we see she nurses Joel. The surroundings here are identical to the game, with him being on a dirty mattress with a couple of blankets to keep him warm. We get a shot similar to the game where she examines his wound, and this is something she did upon returning from David. Seeing how little food they have left, I did go back and forth over what the intention of this scene was. She does hold a snap of it for a second, and I even thought that she might be wondering whether it's worth giving it to him due to him being so close to death's door. I don't think that's what was intended, and I'm sure that the HBO podcast will probably clear this up. We do these videos before that's released, so I don't really get to hear things. Some people genuinely think I watch an hour-long episode and listen to a 40-minute podcast and then make a 30 to 40-minute video and release it the
If
second
only
that the
you
show
could.
ends.
If only
They've
you
discovered
could.
we've been using time travel. They've figured it out. Now, but like I said, I don't think that's the intention, and Ellie decides to mount up and go hunting. Here she comes across a rabbit, like in the
Just in
game,
the game,
and
yeah.
I have to play this clip again. Sorry.
That's the cutest fucking thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
Look, I'm a vegetarian, yeah, but still, it's a good reaction. Now, unlike the PlayStation counterpart, Ellie's pretty useless. Whereas she was taking out animals with ease and that, we see here how she's really struggling.
Well, she's struggling in the game. There's a 3-month time jump or something, right?
Yeah,
So she had
this
time
is-
to like develop her skills.
Yeah,
off
this
screen.
is
Yeah.
not really a time jump. Maybe a couple days, right?
Yeah. Sometimes you never know with these shows. They're like, no, there was like a 3-month time jump. Like,
Well,
there
also,
was?
yeah, and also too, I forgot to mention too in that scene that they cut out that amazing action sequence. David specifically said to Ellie, "It's a 4-mile hike." Now I don't know if he was just lying that it was 4 miles. So we're gonna be here a while, and then they moved the deer in. But I don't know how long the passage of time was in that scene, but it was a pretty quick conversation where he reveals what happens, and then James is immediately back. So if that really, again, I know this is nitpicking, but if it really was 4 miles because you cut that action sequence, now you put yourself in a little hole there, and you got dum-dums like me on the internet are now making claims about, hey, it doesn't really fit there.
I didn't realize how much you hate this show.
At this point, she comes across the deer, and similar to the game, she fails to down it. We have a moment mirroring the sniper scene from episode 6, and I did appreciate how they built off the back of that.
Yeah.
David and James come across it, and he does the typical religious preacher strategy.
Okay, all I ask is 10 seconds of your time. I just want
I
to...
won't say it twice.
Now let's see how these scenes play alongside those in the game.
My favorites. Hunting that deer in that game is so hard.
I love that section, though. It's so much
You think
fun.
we can just take it?
That's what they were missing from the episode, the bone arrow.
Who's there? Come out! Drop your rifles! Now!
Hello? We just want to talk.
Any sudden moves and I put one right between your eyes.
Any sudden moves, I put one right between your eyes. Ditto for Buddy Boy.
Ditto for Buddy Boy over there. What do you want?
Name's David. This here's my friend James.
We're from a larger group, women, children, and we're all very, very hungry.
We're from a larger group. Women, children. We're all very, very hungry.
So am I. Women and children, all very hungry too.
Well, even so, you can't drag this back on your own.
Well, maybe we could trade you for some of that meat there. What do you need?
We're not asking for charity. We can trade you for some of the deer. We have... What do you need? We have...
Medicine?
Weapons, ammo, clothes.
Medicine. Do you have any antibiotics?
Like for infections.
We do. Back at the camp. Welcome to follow us
I'm not
back.
following you anywhere.
We do. Back in our village, you're welcome to follow us.
I'm not following you anywhere.
Change it
Buddy
to
Boy can go
village.
get it. He comes back with what I need. The deer is all yours.
Buddy Boy can go get it. He comes back, you get half the deer.
Anyone else shows up,
You put one right between my eyes.
that's right.
Anyone else shows up, I put one
right between my eyes.
That's right.
2 bottles of the penicillin in a syringe. Make it fast. Go on.
Yeah, he's questioning Will right
Bring
there.
back 2 bottles and a syringe. It's not code, James. Do as I said.
I'll take that rifle.
David looks so creepy. The kid.
Now, David is well aware of who Ellie is at this point, and as we later learn, it was his men that went to the university. Either way, they go into one of the huts, which is similar to how they camped up in the game. Here we learn a bit more about David and discover that he was a maths teacher who converted to become a preacher after the world fell apart. Not even going to go down the rabbit hole with teaching, avoiding that, but we do learn that he came from Pittsburgh. The QZ there fell in 2017 due to a war between the Fireflies and Fedra, which is something that was sort of touched upon in the game.
Yeah.
In the show, Ellie and Joel went to Kansas City, whereas in the source material it was Pittsburgh, where the whole Henry and Sam thing happened. You arrived there to find it overrun by bandits and could piece together enough things to learn about what happened. Fedra had been keeping rations for themselves and starving people, and when they were ousted, the bandits rose up in their place. People like David ended up leaving, and they run into the same problem when it comes to food. The dialogue in the scene starts to transform into how it plays out in the game.
You know, you really shouldn't be out here all on your own.
I don't like company.
You know, you really shouldn't be out here all on your own.
From where I'm sitting, you shouldn't be out here on your own.
I see. What's your name?
Why?
Fair enough. So, what's your name?
Look, I understand it's not easy to trust a couple of strangers.
It's hard to trust strangers, I know, but I honestly mean you no harm.
I'd say we make a pretty good team.
This is after.
We got lucky.
Well, your luck had to run out sooner or later.
Luck?
Lucky? No. No such thing as luck. Now, you see, I believe that everything happens for a reason.
There's no such thing as luck.
Such a good scene.
No, I believe everything happens for a reason.
This winter has been especially cruel.
We didn't expect this winter to be so cruel. Nothing will grow. Game's been hard to find.
Because of the fact that they really leaned into David being a preacher, his delivery sounds like that. Like he sounds like he's talking to his sheep. Like even when he's talking to Ellie, it sounds like he's preaching in a way. Like there's that delivery and cadence in the show itself, whereas it doesn't sound that way at all in the game.
What's a preacher?
It's a thing that smart people follow.
Oh.
And that there's a select group of people who don't follow.
Oh, okay.
Because they don't recognize who the real Son of God is.
I do agree with you. And again, because we had not seen anything from David's perspective before in the video game, again, he's just a suspicious fellow who, after an action sequence, now we've built some trust and camaraderie between the two of them. You don't really have like some basis of background of why he's speaking the way he does. But yes, I agree with you. It plays a lot more into the scene and makes a lot more sense with given the background that we have of him.
So what are you doing this Sunday?
Do you have a place I should go visit?
Yeah.
A synagogue, maybe?
Oh, no. Those are on Saturdays?
I think Friday night. I'm not the best Jew, but I believe Friday
No.
nights.
We'll hit up the other Jews. See when you're supposed to go.
A few weeks back, I sent a group of men out to a nearby town to look for food.
So I sent 4 of our people to a nearby town to scavenge what they could.
Only a few came back.
And only 3 of them came back.
He said that the others had been slaughtered by a crazy man.
Turns out he was murdered by this crazy man.
And get this, he's a crazy man traveling with a little girl.
And get this, that crazy man was traveling with a little girl.
You see, everything happens for a reason.
You see? Everything happens for a reason.
So good. That actor's so good.
Not gonna let her lower the gun.
She is the one that killed Alec, isn't she? She didn't kill anybody. Lower the gun.
Now give her the medicine.
The others won't be happy about this.
Did you bring the medicine?
Out.
Yeah, but throw it to her. David.
Move the fuck out of the way.
Love you, Ashley Johnson.
You won't survive long out there. I can protect you.
You won't survive for long out there. I can protect you.
No, thanks.
You know, after that shot that they had of Troy Baker, am I completely missing this guy's career? Has he not done a lot of live action work? He's so mesmerizing in every frame he has. And like, we didn't even recognize him right away. Like,
It took a second for me to recognize him for sure.
Yeah, you had to point out that I was like, oh yeah, that is him. I'm obviously not that familiar with like the face of Troy. I've seen him, of course, but you had to point him out for me to be like, oh yeah, that's him. But he's so captivating in every frame he has here. So it's not some nostalgia thing for Troy Baker that I have when watching him. There's so much performance in his eyes alone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? Why is he only mainly known for voiceover work when he clearly is a phenomenal like live action actor as well?
His voice is synonymous with video games. He's legendary. I mean, anyone who's played any of the video games that he's voiced of, you know that. So I think that is maybe cut into his live action career, because I agree with you. Like, he really surprised me in this episode. I was watching him like, he is freaking really good. Why isn't he doing more live action? It's just the role of James. Like,
I know, it's just like some side character. And I'm like, but every time the camera's on him, he's really like, I'm pulled in.
Yeah, for sure.
I do miss in the game like how sinister the surrounding atmosphere is with the lighting of how dark it is, and then you see how David just is evolving into the monster with like the way the fire and shadow is casting a specific kind of lighting over him. It feels a little bit more like something demonic in a way.
I remember experiencing this for the first time and my stomach dropped with the turn. This was a guy you just fought side by side with and had now inadvertently revealed yourself as being one of the people that caused his town so much torment. Now they've added in a layer with the person Joel killed being the father of the girl at the steakhouse, and they of course are supposed to reflect Joel and Ellie. We see how the stories have changed too, with Joel being described as a crazy man, whereas we know from our side that they attack them. In the game, we never saw David and James's side after the conversation, but here we can see the doubt in him resurface once more as David lets her go. Now we return back to the house and again see things play out similar to how they do in the game.
Joel?
I just can't take how good the PS5 graphics are. It's insane.
Here we go.
Joel, where the fuck do I put this?
She's such a good actress.
Sorry.
Thank you for cutting that out, Paul.
You're gonna make it.
I love that moment so much.
Originally, this was the moment that you learned Joel was alive, and you'd had a large part of the game as Ellie where you had no idea what his fate was. Similar to the game, Ellie lies down with him, and whereas in that we cut to the morning to see David's forces coming in, here we cut to the town. There's a lot of focus given to the meat, with people clearly knowing what's going on, but they keep it to themselves because the truth's too difficult to bear.
Sweetie
It's said to be venison, but whether that's actually true or not is another thing entirely. James does talk about supplies earlier in the episode, but we know from their interactions that they use code with each other. They could all be lying to themselves, keeping their mind off it, and it can mirror the predatory behaviour with David, but let me know what you think below. At this point, David and James arrive with a deer, and you could say they're like David James, because they saved. Bit of an English joke there, and David admits that they've found who killed Alec, and he ends up slapping his daughter when she suggests killing them. It shows just how abusive that he is, and he tells the girl that he's her father now. The entire town sits in silence and allows it to happen. I think it very much shows the grip that he has over everyone. When things come out about figures like this, you'll often hear about how many people were aware of what was going on, but they turned a blind eye to it. It's very much the idea that you don't have to deal with something if you're ignorant to it, and no matter how horrific it is, you can reassure yourself that everything is okay. The reason I question this venison is because this could very much be carried over to the food too, and we get a lot of focus on the townspeople wolfing it down. They're happy to just tuck into their food, have a warm meal, and be quiet because speaking up's better than starving. Now we then jump back to Ellie and see as Joel looks slightly better.
Was it the dad that they don't clarify, do they?
They
I
didn't
feel like
clarifying, but I mean, the body's turned to bones, and I don't know how long it takes.
There is that line in there earlier in the episode when he says that we have to wait to bury your dad.
Yeah, so I gotta I have to imagine that's what it is, which is poetic and disgusting at the same time.
I think that's awesome.
Next time I come over, we're gonna eat someone, right?
Dude, this is YouTube. They specifically say cannibalism is demonetized. That's one of the things they specify.
I didn't say that word. You did.
There's a real problem on YouTube.
That's why. All right, hey, we won't do that. Great.
She injects him once more, and we get a slight differentiation from the game as Ellie gets to go outside, whereas in the game she spotted people coming in from the basement. We get a great scene with David and James, with the former clearly wanting to take her, even though it will only cause problems with people back in their community. David wants to spare her because he has ulterior motives, whereas James sees it as being God's will that they should leave her to die. This very much reflects Kathleen from earlier in the season, who believed it was Sam's fate to die instead of getting the leukemia medicine. Either way, in both versions, Ellie decides to head out and draw them away, with us getting a big action scene. Ellie leaves Joel with a knife, and this is what he later uses to interrogate the people with. In the game, Ellie took her horse and rode through the streets as the hunters leapt out to grab her, and eventually the horse was shot and she fell down a cliffside. She then navigated the surroundings and got into a hotel, which is where she tried to escape. Here she stealthily took out hunters and eventually was grabbed by David, which is when she was transported to the camp. Yeah, they keep the sort of energy the same, but shorten things a bit, with Ellie riding out and the horse getting shot by James. David demands that Ellie is taken and alive, and I did find it interesting how he mirrors Kathleen. Her need for revenge led to her making dumb decisions, and David's need to have Ellie leads to him doing the same thing. He stops Ellie from being shot and even carries her away, similar to how Joel carried Sarah at the start of the season.
Yes.
The sick and twisted father figure is pretty much a reverse Joel, and he's arguably the most dangerous person we encounter in the whole show. Now that's outside of one of the other characters, but moving on. Now in the game, once Ellie's captured, we then switch perspectives to see Joel like what we get here. When you first took control, you are stumbling about and a little worse for wear, which is like how he appears here too. The tension from the scene comes from the fact that Joel is almost out of it, but he manages to get the upper hand and take down David's men. Now the death scene here is terrifying, with a lot of the struggles feeling like they're ripped right out of the game. The facial expressions especially are something that I always spin the camera around to see, and I guess we've discovered that I'm a bit of a psychopath, but please subscribe. Now from here, we get the interrogation scene. I was so happy seeing this playing out, as I was thinking that the scene with Graham Greene was going to be the show's version of it. Might have spoiled the scene for you if you watched our breakdown for that episode, but I genuinely thought that's how they were going to play it. The Disney interrogation was how I thought they were going to play this scene. Now, because they're so similar, you might be asking, why have they done something that's basically the same scene as that? Well, it's for a good reason, as here we're seeing the true side of Joel when Ellie's not around. In the cabin, we knew nothing was going to happen, as did the couple, because there was a little girl here. They were likely aware Joel wouldn't do anything, which is why they ended up laughing. Yeah, though, Joel is free to do what he wants, and he'll do whatever he wants to get Ellie back. Now let's play the scenes from the game and show you how stuff lines up.
I just love this scene so much.
Leave him alone. Oh, you're next. Oh, please. I don't know any girl. Is she alive? What girl? I don't know no girl. Jesus! Marco. No. Fuck! Focus right here, right here. I'll pop your goddamn knee off. You focus right here, or I'll pop your fucking kneecap off.
He's so good.
The girl.
She's alive.
She's alive.
Where? Where?
The town. The town.
Ah, the town. What town?
Silver Lake.
Now you're gonna mark it on the map. You're gonna point to where we are and where your resort is. And it better be the same exact spot your buddy points to. And it better be the exact same spot your buddy points to. Mark it.
It's right there. You can verify it. Go ask him.
Go ask him, he'll tell you. I'm not lying.
I ain't telling you shit. It's okay.
No.
I believe him.
No.
I ain't telling you shit.
Love the smile on Joel's face.
That's all right. I believe him.
No way.
We also get a follow from this with Ellie and a moment that builds upon the original.
I know you're hungry. You've been out for quite some time.
Although in the game she does
What
eat
is
it. Deer.
It's deer.
For what it's worth, this is just deer meat, I swear.
It's just the deer meat.
You're a fucking animal.
You're gonna chop me up into little pieces.
So now what? You gonna chop me up into tiny pieces?
I'd rather not.
I'd rather not. Please just tell me your name.
Please tell me your name.
You're so full of shit.
If you want to judge me,
Judge you? You're eating people, you sick fuck!
It's awfully quick to judgment. Considering you and your friend killed how many men? It's the only way I'm going to be able to convince the others
Convince them of what?
that you can come around. You have heart. You're loyal. And you're special.
you're smart, loyal.
Oh.
In the life we could build.
That is so disgusting.
You stupid little girl.
You little
Yeah.
What am I supposed to tell the others now?
Let's see what I go tell the others now.
Oh, I love it.
Ellie.
What?
Ellie.
What?
Tell them that Ellie is the little girl.
Tell them that Ellie is the little girl who broke your fucking finger!
I broke your fucking finger!
How did you put it? Hmm? Tiny pieces.
How did you put it? Tiny little pieces?
Ellie realizing they're cannibals is so chilling because they mistake, and it was a mistake getting Ellie caged like this. This picturesque last resort on the world has turned into something where people have turned to cannibalism as a last resort. And
What did the frustrated cannibal do? He
threw up his
hands.
now David recognizes the violent heart within Ellie, and he even talks about how cordyceps showed him the truth of the world. It feeds and protects its children, and he thinks that it actually loves. I realize at this point that the religion thing's a charade, and that he lets others believe it because it brings them comfort. However, it also brings people closer to him, and though he won't admit it, it allows him to be propped up. Now, the cordyceps loving is something that the show's creators have talked about on the podcast, and even said that they had the kiss with Tess to hammer home this idea. Love is laced throughout every aspect of the show, and we've seen both the positives and negatives of it. You have people like Bill and Frank and the couple in episode 6, but then you have people like Kathleen and Joel who it just causes pain for. David has a sick and twisted kind of love, and when he's assaulting Ellie later on, he creepily says, "Don't be afraid, there's no fear in love." Now, the cordyceps have very much made him believe that his sick and twisted view of the world is the right one, and it's a chilling way to portray the character. Although his plan with Ellie fails, it's likely that he would have got her into the camp had things not gone awry. Everyone was just silent about him. I doubt they would have spoken up, and thus he probably could have got her as one of the members. Taking out Joel would have helped him because he was the only person defending him, and I doubt the other villagers would have been like, "Yeah, Ellie's my friend," especially after this stuff with the university. Thus, Ellie would have been alone, and what people tend to do in abusive relationships is that they get people away from their friends and family. Thus, they have no one to fall back on, and with his safety gone, they can fully manipulate the person and control every aspect of their life.
The only aspect you get in the game of seeing David as the leader of them is the fact that he's out there on the hunt with them. And here you get a lot more of the actual psychological manipulation and how people respond to him back at their village, where you can see this guy knows how to use the power of God to make himself. It's like in a way he views himself as a god in this situation. You know, he even has a line in there, I think at some point, about, you know, they'll do whatever I want them to do. You know, he views it like by being the messenger for God, he views himself as the actual God in this situation.
Yeah, I thought in the game he was written so freaking well, and obviously Nolan North did a fantastic job writing. But I kept thinking in the game, like, why are they listening to him? Why are they following him? Because we're not getting to see the perspective from their side. Actually, watching it from here and the way it's expanded upon in this episode, I'm like, okay, now I understand why they are following David, why they fear for David, the manipulation he invokes on them, how he just views them as his sheep and he's the shepherd and all that. I'm like, this makes so much more sense. Now it gives more context to the game, even though you don't have that stuff in the game. It just gives context, and that's the kind of stuff that I love. Like when you do adaptations of video games or whatever, and you give that other stuff that was not expanded upon, and it just like adds gaps there.
Now back with Joel, we see as the storm rolls in and he makes his way to Salt Lake. This is a similar thing to the game, and at this point you're able to mask your movements by using the environment. Now inside a hut there, he discovers belongings and bodies hanging up, which is similar to what happens when you enter one in the game.
Yeah,
you
bodies.
find Ellie's backpack, which is ripped right out of it too, and he realizes just how much trouble she's in. Now the episode in general, it reminded me a lot of the movie The Road, in which characters also come across cannibals in that. Also, it's important to bear in mind that James is comfortable doing this with a chopping board, probably because he's helped David kill people like this before. In the game, he even refers to Ellie as David's new pet, showing how he views her. And we then get Ellie's escape in another scene that's ripped right out of the game.
Wakey, wakey. Come on.
Let's go! Stop!
That was so smart.
I warned you.
Wait! Don't do it! Please don't do it! Please don't!
You had your chance.
I'm infected! I'm infected!
Really?
So are you.
And now so are you.
Really?
So are you.
Roll up my sleeve. Look at it. Look at it!
Right there.
It's always such a hunting
Roll up my
shot.
sleeve.
I'll
Look
play,
at it!
I'll play along.
I'll play along.
What'd you say?
What did you say? Everything happens for a
I
reason.
love the reactions.
Everything happens for a reason, right?
What the hell is that?
No, she would have turned by now. This isn't real.
She would have turned by now. It can't be real.
Looks pretty fucking real to me.
Looks pretty fucking real to me.
Wow,
You
massive.
might be asking whether Ellie biting someone can actually infect them, and there's a bit in the second game that clears this up. I'll talk about that in the super spoiler section, but we do kind of know the answer to it. Either way, they cut the sections down here and compress the scene so that Ellie goes immediately into the restaurant. In the game, you made your way through the town and jump back and forth between Joel and Ellie. I think it's actually smarter to handle it like this, and we see Ellie throwing a burning log, which ends up setting the place on fire. In the game, as you went to escape, David grabbed you, and eventually this knocked over a lamp, which then started the blaze. There's several lines from the game are pulled directly across here.
No way out, Ellie. The doors are locked, and I have the keys.
Nowhere to go. You want out? Gonna have to come get these keys.
Now, Ellie burning down this quote-unquote church also symbolically shows how she's burning down the facade of everything David's built. The pair battle it out with one another, and the struggle ends up being exactly like how it is in the game.
Show Ellie getting kicked.
You have no idea what I'm capable of.
Show Mel Gibson now in The Patriot.
Stop! Stop!
Fucking touch me!
It's me! It's me! It's me! Look! Look! It's me! It's me!
I like bringing it about her. It's like bringing darkness into the light.
Oh, baby girl. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay, baby girl. I got you.
During David's death, we keep the focus on Ellie, and it shows how much overkill she's giving to this wicked and evil man. Joel comforts her, and we get a really important line dropped here where he calls her baby girl. This is the same nickname that he gave to Sarah, and at this point, he's all in on this being his daughter. The pair walk off together with his arm around her.
We're all in.
And this is a
You're my
complete
daughter.
opposite to how they were in episode 2. After Tessa's death, Joel stormed away, leaving Ellie. Whereas here, we see them closer than they've ever been. The pair have bonded over everything, and whereas she once was just cargo, here he's putting a coat around her to let her know everything's okay.
I understood
and
that
we once more
reference.
get a shot of the pair
That was
walking
good.
away.
That was
this
good.
is imagery that's often used in the show and game, and it stages the characters are going on the next part of their journey. Now, before we get into the spoiler section, I'll give my review, and I thought this episode was really solid with some great performances in it. Scott Shepherd brought a lot to David, and at points, he was even creepier than Nolan North.
Yeah.
In the game, things are a lot more implied, but there was some extra lines of dialogue that they added, which really freaked me out. Now, it was also really nice seeing Troy Baker too, and he gave a lot away from just minor facial expressions. Guy looked completely beaten up at points, and his meek performance made me think that he very much represented the town's citizens who refused to confront David. I think this episode worked really well as an evolution of Ellie as well, and it's no coincidence that this is the chapter in the game where you first take control of her. Like that section, this is very much about her having to fight to survive without help from others. So far, she's relied on people like Fedra, Riley, Marlene, Joel, Tess, and Henry and Sam, but this is her showing that when she's cornered, she can handle things that come her way. You also see that the character is realizing that this world isn't as fun as it's cracked up to be. Going back to that opening in episode 3, we've seen how she thought wielding a gun was something cool and also exciting. Here though, we have her smashing David's head in like it's a like button, and we see the relentless anger that she carries. Huge change in dynamic and her growth as a character. Now, as for what I didn't like, you already know what I'm going to say, and I think the show has continued to underuse the infected, which has taken away from some of the most memorable scenes of the game. I think if we had something with David where they had to fight some of them, it would have made that turn as impactful as it is in the game, and with the episode just being 45 minutes long, I think we could have easily have gotten another 10 or even 5 minutes where we had something like that play out. I'm guessing that they've pulled back on showing the infected as much because of the budget, but every week it seems like there's a major moment involving them which is left on the cutting room floor. Minor nitpick, and yeah, obviously the game's there if you want to see more of them, but I did kind of want an action scene like that with Ellie, so we could see what she was capable of against humans and also the infected. Now that takes us into the super spoiler section, and for the next part of the video, I want to go over some of the Easter eggs that will probably give the game away. If you don't want things spoiled, then thanks for watching. Thanks a lot, mate, again, for wasting 40 minutes of your life. And I hope to see you back for the finale next week. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is the interrogation technique. In part 2, Ellie also ends up using this, and we of course needed to see her actually see it for herself in order to explain how she knows this. We also discover that Silver Lake is a resort.
Oh, yeah, that's a good
rather than
point.
just being
Yeah.
a town. I wonder if this line was thrown to show how resorts have changed across the country, as part 2 ends with Ellie going to a resort on the hunt for Abby. This was controlled by slavers, and you can see how these holiday
Like the
locations have
Rattlers.
been twisted in this new world. And lastly, is Ellie biting David? Was he infected? Was he not? We don't fully know. However, Ellie does end up kissing Dina in the second game, and at one point she also bites Abby when she's fighting her in the theatre. As we know, Abby doesn't get infected, and thus I don't think that Ellie's bite actually could infect people. The infection seems to have
not.
stopped at her arm and
Yes.
not made its way to her saliva glands, and thus I don't think she passes it on. So I don't think Ellie actually infected David, and either she didn't know or she used it as a weapon. Throughout the series, she's been told to hide it from people, but she pulls it out in this moment to further sow doubt and confusion.
Yeah.
This throws James off a bit, and it adds upon what he was experiencing before, allowing Ellie to escape. Anyway, that wraps up the video, and huge thank you for sticking with me until the end.
Wow.
Were you gonna say he didn't miss one like the drink?
No, I was
reference?
gonna say, like, I'm surprised you didn't talk at all about how Joel, the reason they want revenge against Joel is for killing someone who's a father.
Oh, yes,
Which
yes,
is
yes,
like
yes.
and then leaving a little girl behind who declares she wants revenge.
Well, he didn't go in the time machine and watch our reaction and
To
see that
know.
we talked about
So that was like my main takeaway with the change. It was like, wow, that's a massive foreshadowing.
it. Yeah. I mean, that's what he's got us for.
I need to message him. Like, why are you dropping the ball here, Paul?
Yeah.
Paul with the drop balls.
But if you noticed on not only the reaction but here too, I don't mind those other action sequences where Ellie was fending off and
You just got to keep defending yourself.
I just got to keep defending.
defending.
No, I'm just saying.
I don't care
like,
what people think,
no,
but I'm going to keep saying.
No, the point I'm making is like I don't
Yeah.
mind you getting rid of certain
That's why
action
I'm gonna eat
sequences. Yeah, thank you. I don't mind you getting rid of certain action. It's storytelling action sequences that I like to be kept.
It's all filler.
Thank you. So yeah,
It's all filler, Andrew.
yeah.
The show's perfect. They never make a miscalculated choice at all.
Nothing is perfect. It's every episode 10 out of 10, and you're a bigot if you say otherwise.
Yeah, specifically a bigot.
You're a Last of Us hater.
You're a bigot. I love that. That's so funny. Anyway, Andrew, guys, they should subscribe to Paul, and we should also do. Andrew, pick any name here.
Go back down.
Okay,
Got to go with David.
David Gandy. Oh, that is perfect. David is actually quite a religious person in real life too. So this is wonderful. You're a perfect choice for this, David. Yeah, David sometimes performs music at his church as well. He's a guitarist. He's a man of God, God-fearing individual. And now, David, I think it's about time you take over that church of yours. Right now, what they need is a solid preacher. They need you to rise through the ranks. I know that sometimes when we talk to you, you can sound a little bit meek and you got this really soft-spoken voice, but that's so you can lure people in, make you seem trustworthy, and like, oh, he's so nice. But David, come on, man. Now's your time to take control of the people at your church. You can get them to do whatever you want, Mr. Gandy. Why are you wasting your time just being a shepherd? And nope, wrong word. One of the sheep when you could be the shepherd. Come on, dude. David, what is America without taking advantage of other people? Get involved. Get in the action, man.
It's all about manipulation,
It's
David.
all about manipulation, dude. All about manipulation. Now, I got to clarify for you, too, when I'm being serious or sarcastic. I'm being 100% serious right now.
He is.
Arizona's boring. Do something interesting in Arizona. Start a new cult. I'm sorry, David. Praise be to God. Keep your faith. Thank you for being a patron of ours for so long. Anything you want to say, David?
Thank you, David. I will visit you in church sometimes if my rabbi says it's okay.
Oh, God. I can't wait to eat you.
With or without the yarmulke on?
Oh, with.
Okay, perfect.
With the yarmulke.
I've always said in my head if I want to get eaten, it's with my yarmulke on, so I appreciate you at least.
I just ordered 5 yarmulkes off Amazon. This is a weird video.